meeting of the Board of Adjustments. The board was created by the city charter to hear applications for variances from the zoning ordinance requirements and to hear and render decisions on interpretations of the requirements of the zoning ordinance. The board consists of 5 voting members. It requires 4 affirmative votes for approval of any variance or interpretation. All cases on the agenda will be heard in the order listed. The order of proceeding for each case shall be as follows. Applicant shall present his case. Persons in favor of variance shall present their evidence. Persons opposed to the variance shall present their evidence. The applicant shall be given the rebuttal period. The public hearing will be closed and no further testimony will be accepted. The normal procedure is that the board will discuss and take action on the application. All meetings of the board are open to the public. Anyone in the audience who thinks that for any reason they will speak before the board tonight, please stand and take the oath. Okay. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth in all matters pertaining to the cases before the Board of Adjustment? Please say, I do. Okay. Please be seated. Thank you. All right, roll call. Gene Ogle. Here. Jack Lehman. Here. Robert Jones. Here. Roy Brown. Here. And I'm Tim Watkins. Okay. First case tonight, 19-999-26, Craig DeLong. There was a request for another continuation till the January 16th meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move the case be continued to January 16th.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Gene Ogle.
I vote yes.
Jack Lehman.
Yes.
Robert Jones.
Yes.
Roy Brown.
Yes.
I myself vote yes as well. Continued until next month on January 16th. Okay, the next case, 19-999-27. Is it Ricardo Ortiz? A variance request to the building setback requirement at the property of 3509 South Sterling Avenue. Have we got our slideshow ready?
Yes, we do. The applicant requests a variance to build a new deck, new front deck and steps, replacing the existing porch and steps that were legal non-conforming. The proposed wraparound deck, which is actually under construction already, will be deeper than the smaller porch that had previously been on the home. Decades ago, the property lost most of its front yard when the right-of-way was taken to widen Sterling Avenue, leaving only 21 feet between the right-of-way and the residence, and not the required 50 feet as required by code today. Because of these conditions, when the completed deck and steps are will encroach within 5 feet of the right-of-way and sidewalk. Therefore, a variance of 45 feet from the 50-foot required exterior setback requirement is necessary. So, as you can see, here's that new deck that was already under construction prior to application of the present variance, and you can see it's sort of a wraparound deck. So there's deck on the west side and also on on the north side of the house. This is looking, or at the south side of the house, I'm sorry. This is looking south down Sterling Avenue. And then this is back up, north up Sterling, back toward 35th, the intersection of 35th and Sterling. And this is the street perpendicular to, or that comes in perpendicular from Sterling right across from this home. And this is the house on the southwest part of that intersection. And this is the house on the northwest part of that intersection. So,
Okay. Is the applicant present? You step to the podium, give us your name and address, and
Good afternoon. My name is Ricardo Ortiz. I currently live at 705 East 34th Street, but I'm trying to rebuild this deck at 3509 South Sterling Avenue.
okay. And have you got, what's your reasoning behind this?
I just wanted to make it look nicer, a little like welcoming. I know this is a very nice street. A lot of people go by, a lot of drivers, especially during rush hour, and just want to liven up the place and make the house look a lot more presentable and nice for the community.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for the applicant?
How deep is the deck going to be from the front of the house to the edge of the deck? What's the dimension?
It'll be 8 feet
8 feet?
long.
And what was it before?
It was 6. So just a couple feet more.
Well, it certainly looks like quite an improvement over what was there before. So I mean,
Yeah,
it looks good.
Thank you, thank you. It was pretty deteriorated, unfortunately.
And this deck is on the west side of the home, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And is it going to be covered with a
Mm,
roof or a pergola of some sort?
No, as of right now, no. Most
Okay.
likely, no, it
Okay.
won't be.
No line of sight issues on this, or encroachment on utility easements or anything?
no.
Okay. Any calls on this?
I didn't receive any calls at all, so.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have no question.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else here to speak in favor of this variance? No? Anybody here to speak in opposition of this variance? No. Okay. Well, thank you. You can go ahead and be seated.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and have a little discussion on this one. It appears that all the criteria have been met on this, and yes, it is a weird situation over there on Sterling because they took, yeah, well, yes. Yes, taking so much of the front yards on those homes along that road. So,
That's for sure.
anybody have anything on this?
Like you said, Tim, I see all 6 of the items on here. have been
Please ask
just
the
as
board
all.
to speak into the microphones. This
I
is
say
being
all the,
recorded.
pardon me, all the list here of the review criteria by the staff, it's yes on all 6 of them. So to me, that's pretty much a given.
I'd like to make a motion. That we approve case number 19-999-27 as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Let's take a vote on this. All right, Gene Ogle,
I vote yes.
Jack Lehman,
I vote yes.
Robert Jones,
Yes.
Roy Brown.
Yes.
And I'm Tim Watkins, and I vote yes as well. It seems that case number 19-999-27 has been approved. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Okay. This is the one.
Okay. We don't have to vote on this Dan Sunderland
No, it's just an advisory.
because he withdrew, correct?
That's right.
Okay. All right. Well, then the next case is 19-999-30, Stein and Associates, a variance request to the residential design standards for the property at 735 East Devon Street. Do I have an applicant or the representative? Can you come to the podium and tell us who you are?
Did you want to do the review?
If you need to, you can adjust that microphone.
Do you want me to give the slideshow first?
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Let's go ahead and see the vacation pics.
Okay, this, this is an application by Stein and Associates. They seek to construct a new home on this vacant lot. And part of the structure will actually consist of two shipping containers. As we look at the slide that's up there now, these are actually, this is the site, vacant lot with the shipping containers already on the site and ready to use. They're brand-new containers sitting back about 100 feet or so, 150 feet, probably 50 feet from the road. This is another picture of the containers. Now I'm going to go down on the and show all the houses on the south side of the street and then the north side of the street so you can see what this section of Devon or Devon looks like. Okay, this is the house that's immediately to the west of the applicant's site. It's 231 East Devon. And then we have 217 East Devon, Devon. And then 709. And now we're at the corner there, and we're going to look north at the houses on the north side of the street and how they appear. This is a small house at the corner there of Devon and okay, and this is we're here at 706, 712, 718. See, all the homes in here are basically have a front of stone, brick, or some sort of siding, vinyl or regular siding. This is 734, 736. And here we're going to flip back and go to the houses. There's a couple of houses on the east side of the applicant's property, and this is what they look like. This is the one that's on the corner. I believe it's Crane and Devon. And then this is the house that's immediately east of the applicant's property. It's pretty typical for this neighborhood, mostly smaller, single-story homes with some other homes mixed in. Architecture is primarily in the 40s, 50s, something like that. So the residential infill development standards are to encourage infill development that is compatible with the physical characteristics of the neighborhood in which it is located. Again, this neighborhood consists of older homes of single-family construction with the exterior elevations being composed of wood, brick, vinyl siding, or stone. After reviewing the house plan submitted by the applicant for a building permit, staff determined that its design was not in keeping with the city's residential design standards. As the plans that you received showed, it's kind of a square structure with the two shipping containers being the outsides of the house, which would be the east and west elevations. Between those two containers is I guess it's a regular style home, more or less, or a part of the structure that has a wood frame in the middle. And then the second page also shows you the interior of the interior of the home, where the containers are, and then the part that's built in between the containers. And then the third page shows the elevations of the house, the side elevations in the front and rear. This plan shows the shipping containers to be of a green color. They could be painted though, to match the house. Also, this house does not sit on a full or half basement or on a pad or a slab. It sits on these piers that's shown on this sheet A201, and then is skirted around the bottom, somewhat similar to a mobile home.
That's kind of different.
Okay.
And I can go through the slides again if you'd like.
Anybody need to see those slides again?
I personally don't need to see them. I'll let the fellas.
Roy? Want to see those?
The ones that are immediately adjacent to his and across the street, can you clarify which ones those are?
Okay.
That one's the one that's adjacent?
This is the one that's immediately east of the applicant's property on that south side of the street. And then this is the one that's on the corner, which is 2 houses away from the applicant site, also on the south side. And if we go this way, this little stone house is the one that's closest house to the applicant's property on the west side. And then the next one that's on the west side. And then we go to the end here. Whoops. This is one of the houses that are on the north side of the site, pretty much close to the applicant's property, kind of across and down a little bit. And then this is another one that's also across on the north side and then down, I believe, the other way just a little bit. And then this is the one that's further west, across the street and then west of the site.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. If you can come to the podium and introduce yourself. And
My name is Wallace Stein. I'm the managing director for Stein and Associates.
okay.
I wasn't aware that we were allowed to use a PowerPoint, so I went and have the same photos there. And through the variance in the ordinance, it is based on your definition. Essential characteristic is prominent characteristics which to serve to distinguish. So we have 7 or 8 houses on Devon Street, and not a one are identical. So even if we were to try to design to something that is distinguishable in characteristic, the only thing that's distinguishable about the characteristic is they're all different. So you start off, when we start at the very corner, which was the ranch that had a breezeway and then a one-car garage. And then the house that is directly next to my property, which is this house, which is a 1.5-story Tudor. Front door facing back west, not facing south to Devon. So a completely different style house. It also has steel siding, I'd like to point out. This is the house that I first mentioned, which was the ranch with a breezeway, and go from there. Then the house directly north to directly to the west of my property is the house with the stone front. It does have a vertical steel siding on the back of it. Then the photo that was not in the photo shown, it has a cinder block garage with a flat roof and a gravel driveway. So there's 3 different styles on the exterior of that house. This house here, which I apologize, I don't remember the address, would be your traditional gable-to-gable ranch with a detached garage. The house next to it is a front to back split. Then you have a 14 pitch front Tudor style porch, which gives it a completely different look, and it's a gable to gable. So a completely another different style. I honestly couldn't tell you the style of the one that's at the corner. It's kind of overgrown, you can't see it very much. That is the corner house. This is the house next to it. Gorgeous home. Very similar to the house that we're looking for, with the exception that it has a hip roof on it. We're going to gable. For the main purpose is I want 12-foot ceilings, because ours is a open design. So we're going gable to gable, so they can have the windows in the front and have a higher ceiling height on the exterior.
Do you wanna, hold that up again?
Yep.
So what you're saying basically is, if you take that plan, you take what's, on our right, and you put it on the left, that's kind of, you think that
This
represents
is gonna be
what you're doing?
very similar to what we're building, with the exception is it's a hip roof, so you see the roof at the
Yeah.
front of the house.
Yeah.
We're going for the gable because I want a higher ceiling height, and I want the windows in the front to let the light in the front and the back above there. Their front door's in the center. The difference is our porch is gonna be a little bit bigger, and the entry to it is gonna be dead center of the property. The door's dead center of the property. Their door is kind of centered, but it's just kind of cockeyed from the driveway, so it's gonna be very similar to that. The container portion of my design is, well, let me get to the house directly across from me.
You need to speak into the microphone, it's being recorded.
I apologize, I don't have a photo of the house directly across from me, which was the White House, 2-story metal siding, this one here. So that's directly across from me. Again, we have a mixture of single-story ranches, gable to gable, or with hips. Half of the block has metal siding. The only difference is theirs running horizontal, mine's gonna run vertical. Theirs is a .02 mil with an enamel finishing. Mine's Corteen steel, the strongest steel made. I mean, it's the exterior clad of the building and the building envelope is no different than what's throughout Independence everywhere. So, you know, I mean, that's the one thing I wanted to point out, because they put on number 6, and I started with number 6, that the essential character, and when I pulled that up per definition, is the prominent characteristics which serve to distinguish. I don't see a single characteristic on this street. The main characteristic to distinguish is every house is different. And that's what makes the street unique. That's what makes it cool.
Are all the houses, do they all have composition shingles, and do you have composition shingles on yours?
Yes, sir. Most of them have what is known in the industry as a dimensional shingle. We will be using a dimensional shingle. We'll be using the Malarkey shingle. It is essentially cosmetically, from the eye, is identical to virtually every roof on the street, with the exception is I believe in EcoBuilds, the shingle we have has the CO2 eating 3M granules on it. So my roof will equate to about planting 2 full-grown trees and eating carbon dioxide. So that's the only difference between my roof and the rest of the roofs that will be on the street. And the color that is designed that you see is not the intended color. I am very much a gray person. This will be a gray-based house. Most likely Seal Gray is one of the main colors we use. That would be the color plat for Sherwin-Williams, and it's just a darker gray.
Can you explain how you're gonna handle the skirting in relationship to the vertical siding that's on the?
There is a spike that you insert into the ground, and then you use a 2x3 that goes into that spike. That spike will come up to the bottom of the container. We will cover that framing with a ZEP board and then attach the leftover from the cutouts of the container to match the rest of the exterior of the siding.
The face material on the skirting is going to be what exactly?
It will look exactly like the exterior clad of the container.
It'll be a vertical
Yes.
steel with the same spacing?
Yes, it will actually be the interior walls of the containers that we take out will be reused for the skirting in the front porch. I see no need to recycle something, then cut it up and put it in a landfill. So one of our missions is whatever we cut, we try to implement back into the build to truly recycle.
What stabilizes the bottom of the skirting from movement?
There's a spike system. It goes into the ground about 2 foot. So once that metal spike goes in, then you have a framing member that will come up to the top. Then you use what I use is a ZEP board, which is a rot and decay resistant plywood, which will go up and then we'll attach the skirting to
So you're
that.
gonna have a horizontal member that connects those spikes that you're gonna fasten your vertical skirting to? Or I'm gonna make sure I understand.
It's essentially gonna look like a normal H channel on siding is what it will look like. So it will be no different than if you're putting on horizontal siding, it comes in a 10-foot panel. So when you get to a gable, you have to put an H channel. So the bottom part slides in, top part slides in. So the design will look exactly like a traditional H channel.
Have you talked to neighbors? Have you shown some of your neighbors what you're planning and?
I tried to. The only gentleman that I spoke with was when we were out there actually clearing the lot. There was some storm debris. We cut down a couple of dead trees. I spoke with him briefly. No, I don't believe it was you. The gentleman that lived in this house here, we just spoke briefly. Was it? Okay. And there was no objection at the time, but the thing of it is it is not my intent to invest the money to build something that doesn't fit or looks appropriate. And I am a very meticulous builder. So it's one of the things where we're talking about really just an exterior cladding, which is no different than the cladding all over the city of Independence.
Do you think this house will have more value than the average house in the neighborhood as far as sales?
No, and this is
Appraisal?
where we're restricted, is we are restricted to a cost per square foot. So when the code officials are saying that they need a variance, doesn't harm me, it does, because there's only so much per square foot you're gonna get in that market. So within the budgetary number, at a new construction build cost, we are already at the per square sales price of the property directly next to me.
So what you're saying, just to be clear, is that when this house is built and sold, it will sell for as much as the per square foot as the houses in the neighborhood?
Or slightly more.
Or more?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Jack, any questions? No? Gene? No? Okay.
I would like to touch on item number 1 in the letter. Before I purchased this property approximately 2 years ago or so. Within the contract of the property, I knew the build that I intended on putting on the property. I did come down, I've been a licensed contractor in the city of Independence for 20-something years. I did come down, I did talk with the code official. I believe it was Jerry who I spoke with. Showed him not the full plans, but pictures and the intent of what I wanted to build on the property. And he said, as long as the engineering's there and we have stamps, won't have a problem. So I do want to stress that, there was no intentional act. I mean, I did my due diligence before I purchased the property, and I wouldn't have bought the property if the city had told me at the time, no, that's not the case. So I do want to point that out.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, and we'll, is Is anyone else in favor, I say in favor of this ordinance? Or this variance, I'm sorry, ordinance. Oh, boy. Okay. Anyone not in favor? Okay. One at a time, come up to the podium, adjust the microphone so you can be heard. Tell us who you are, where you live, and what your concerns are.
Okay, I am Ann Hancock. I live at 718 East Devon Street. I also own the house at 734 East Devon Street, which my son lives in. We're here to speak against this, mainly because we're an older neighborhood. We like our houses the way they are. This one is different, and that's not necessarily bad, except for we don't particularly care for the shipping crates, even though when they get done with it, it's still going to be a lot of things that resemble a trailer with the skirting and no basement, nothing to put it on other than the pilings. A little bit sorry about that. Sometimes we have a little bit of water along there. I'd be afraid of this kind of going down. I have looked up, I've lived there for 57 years, and pretty much everything has stayed the same on the street. We're an older neighborhood, like I said, and we kind of like things peaceful and quiet. Not that the house would be noisy, but since as far as I know, there are no other ones in Independence, we feel like we would have a lot of traffic going up and down our street, which we don't have now. Devon is 2 blocks, the 7 and the 8, and then there's Keir between it, and then 4 and 5, and that's the only blocks that are Devon. So we have a very quiet neighborhood. We don't have to worry about kids running in and out of the road and traffic and stuff like that. So kind of afraid that maybe if we had this, that people all over would be coming to look at it, which would kind of be upsetting a little bit. I have looked into some of the shipping containers. To me, there are a few things that I was just a little bit not liking. Some of them, and I don't know that his is that way, I can't say to that, but some of them they say can be toxic inside, because when they make the actual shipping trailers to ship things, they have pesticides that they spray on the floor that can cause problems. Some of the paint that's on the outside of these can also be chemically treated to where they would be a little bit on the dangerous side for anybody that was living in them. I think that possibly it would devalue a little bit on the houses because of the fact that there's no basement, no pad that they put them on, that it's all on the piers or piles. Not too happy about that one either. They need to, from what I read anyway on the computer looking them up, they need to be maintained a little bit more than what houses do because they can rust. And if they sell this house to somebody, I'm afraid that if they would have to go back and repaint them, that they wouldn't want to because it would be wouldn't be cost effective. And so they would just kind of leave them there and let them rust, which would be not too good. That would be another main thing, would be the maintenance of it. And I know there's a couple houses on the block that need some maintenance, but they're at least substantial houses. They don't rust. As far as the company itself, I didn't know them. I've tried for a couple of years to find out who they were, because once whoever, if he bought it 2 or 3 years ago, then that would be the one that would be. You can check back with the city. I've had to call, the whole neighborhood has had to call several times because they never mowed the yard when they were in the summertime, and the weeds sometimes were waist to shoulder high. This spring, late spring, early summer, there was a fox that had a house over there and had about 4 or 5 little babies. We've also seen a couple of snakes and mice, and I don't know what else was over there, but about once a year they mowed it. And then 2 years ago, there was a tree a big full-size tree that had come up out of its roots, and the only thing that kept it up was the tree that it leaned on. Now, if that had fallen, the way it was leaning was toward the road. And it'll be 2 years in February that we started on that to try to get them to clear the land off, or at least to get rid of the tree so it wouldn't fall on anybody. The only time they did it was this fall when they started tearing things down and putting up these containers up on the lot. And then they did it. They did take the tree down, but the city had about almost 2 years of citations to him. I can't remember Sean's last name, but his first name, we were on a first name basis almost because I called him so much, and I hated to do that, but nevertheless. Let's see, what else did I have? I think that was just about it. But our main thing is the concern of the value of the house. I have a letter, Mr. Rush could not come tonight. He had a previous engagement. I don't know if I'm allowed to read his letter or not.
I don't know any reason why you couldn't.
Okay. It says, my name is George Rush, and I live at 736 Devon Street in Independence. Except for a brief period in the late 70s and early 80s, I've lived in this neighborhood since 1962. I received a letter from the city informing me of a request to seek a variance to construct a home using cargo containers. I apologize I am not able to attend the meeting and express my concerns as I had a prior engagement. I have two concerns about a home being constructed out of cargo containers. How will this affect the value of my property? I understand homes constructed from cargo containers have substantially lower value since realtors use the selling price for homes in the immediate vicinity to determine a whole resale value. Concerns me a great deal. Secondly, I am concerned about what it will look like. I mean, will the end product resemble a cargo container or a home? Is this kind of construction you would see in your own neighborhood? If so, it would significantly alter the landscape of our neighborhood, establishing a permanent downward direction for the future development. I know the picture. I've seen some pictures of these houses, but most of them are larger, and they still, to me, even the fancy ones that go for a lot of money, still resemble a trailer. Some of them look good. They would be great on maybe lake houses, out in farms, things like that, because you can make them bigger and they do look a little bit nicer. But I really have concerns about this in our neighborhood.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Questions?
Anybody have any questions for the?
Sorry.
A question, I have a question for Ian. You said you have seen the drawings for this house?
Not this, but well, I got one of the things that
Okay,
he's
so
got
when you
here.
look at that
I've
drawing-
not seen what it actually looks like. I mean, when I look at that, it still looks a little trailerish. I looked them all up on the internet.
Well, I'm just talking about his house. Have you really
Just
looked-
looking at it,
have
it
you-
still kind of looks like a,
I mean, you've noticed that it comes up like this, and it has
Right.
the front, and you've
Right.
So you see that he's kind of hidden those
he's trying to get in with it, and that's
units
fine.
in there, and that.
But I still think it may devalue the properties. There's some of them there on that street that, like I said, do need fixing up. I understand that. But there's 2 or 3 rental houses there, and then here again, if somebody buys this and makes it a rental house, they're not going to take care of it. And that's what's happened on some of these other ones. So the fact that he had so much trouble keeping the lot clean over the 2 or 3 years that he had it, then I feel like, I don't know whether can really trust what he's going to, I'm not saying anything like that, but I mean, it makes you wonder if he didn't care any more about the lot to begin with, to keep it clean from trash and keep it clean from weeds and everything else.
My question to you is, if you found out that this house is actually gonna be more valuable than you think now, would that make a difference in your attitude towards this?
No.
So,
Because I don't, from the ones that I saw that were kind of like these, they were talking anywhere from 45 to 50,000.
I'm talking about if a appraiser, for example, that's a professional appraiser, were to look at this house and say, this is what this house is worth, would that make a difference to you on your attitude about this house? I'm just trying to understand your basic objection.
I just don't like a non-basement pad thing in that neighborhood. Everybody else has either a basement or a pad or that type of thing to where I know it's not going anywhere.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am not as prepared as them because I had no idea what was going on.
Pull the mic.
I just
There
got
you
a text from my son saying there is a meeting tonight and I needed to be there, so that's why I'm here. But my son is right behind those trailers, so I go visit him, and that's all I've seen so far. I have no idea what was going on. I was just wondering, what are those things going there? And now that I hear her talking, I understand that this year we just had like a really rats everywhere. And I think she's right about that. There is
Did
being.
she introduce herself?
No.
Oh, my name is Ora Morad.
Okay, can you give us your address, please?
My son's address behind his house or where I live,
Where you live?
whichever. 2801 South Cedar Crest Terrace, St. Independence, 64057. Sorry, never done this before. But I just wanted to come here because, the way that it looks right now is very intimidating. My son has been living there for a while because we wanted to fix up the house that is right behind them. He got out of high school, and that was the idea, and we've been doing a little bit at a time. But also, my daughter just moved at 803 Devon, which didn't show the picture. And the reason that she picked a house is because the character of the house. The old-fashioned character, nowadays, they do it the new age, the model, the clean look. She was looking for the more old-fashioned, homey look. I don't know where you guys live, but the more family-looking homes, and that's what we found in Devon Street. And the whole neighborhood, you got the Golden Acres, like right across the street from Gojo, and that's the type of houses, that the new generation, I don't know, some of the people are looking. And that's what we see in that neighborhood. So when you bring this metal thing that I like, there are a lot of people getting into, tiny houses and metal houses and clean looks, but it's more outside of the city limits. This is more, homey area. So that's why I'm here. So we never heard about it, so I don't know if he went around the neighborhood asking. But the only thing we saw, it was those crates one day. And the house next to where he's at is for sale. If the house stays like that, if that stays like that for a long time, that house, I don't think is gonna be sold anytime soon. And again, about the cleaning, this year we have a rat problem, not just in my brother's house, my son's house that is behind his, but also on the neighbors. We've been talking to them, and because finally he cleaned it up behind there, and now, they're trying to find places to go. I'm thinking now they should talk about that. So I don't know what else I need to add. I don't know if I need to prepare for something else, but as of right now, what I see it is not something that we really want in that neighborhood. So.
Any questions for this lady? No?
Laura,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Did you have something? Next, yes, please.
Yeah, I'm Bill Cook. I live at the corner of Devon and Keer. My address is actually Keer, and it was one of the houses that wasn't shown. He showed the house right behind mine, but my house faces Kier, and my driveway comes in from Devon. And it's a two-car garage with shop and a horseshoe-shaped concrete driveway. And I was never told what those containers were put there for until just recently when Mrs. Hancock told me. She asked me if I'd gotten any notification about what they were planning to do, and I said, no. What are they planning to do? And that's when she informed me that they were planning to build a container-built house out of shipping containers. And apparently, the only people notified were the ones that lived within a 185-foot radius. Why was not the entire block notified?
That's a standard for all cities. That's the way it's been for years.
So basically, it's just the people that live on the adjacent properties, and as the one lady was talking, the property behind and the property perhaps across the street. But something like this concerns the entire neighborhood, not just the adjacent properties. And as I understand the way this is to be built with skirting around it, I don't think that would fit the style of homes. Yes, it's an eclectic style of homes in this neighborhood. No two of them, I think, are identical. But they are frame homes. And I'm not so sure that they don't pretty much all have a basement under them. They're at least on a slab or a crawl space under them. But to put this one up on piers and put skirting around it, no, to me, that smacks of a mobile home park. And as I understand it, Independence restricts the placing of mobile homes on just anywhere, right? Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
I think with mobile homes, it has to be in a mobile home park.
That's correct.
Okay, and something like this to me would be in the neighborhood of a mobile home, even though it may be two containers side by side, and you can go ahead and stick a gabled roof on it if you want to, but it's still going to be a metal structure. And I do not think it fits with the motif of this neighborhood, even though it is an older neighborhood, and as Mrs. Hancock said, some of the houses need repairing, as I think you would probably find in most neighborhoods in Independence. You can live right next door to an immaculate house, and the guy next door doesn't care what his property looks like. What are you going to do? But anyway, that's the way it is. And I would be against having this type of a structure built in our neighborhood.
Okay, any questions for this gentleman?
Oh, I've lived there since 1973. And we've added to our house. My wife passed away 5 years ago, but back in the mid-'80s, instead of moving, we chose to add on. And at the time we added on, we did add to the basement out the back of our house. But it surprised me that that wasn't part of the slideshow here. I can only assume it was because my house did not actually face Devon. It faces Kier, but it's on the corner of Kier and Devon. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, anybody else wishing to speak on this? No? Okay. Did you get calls on this, I'm assuming?
Yes, the Mrs. Howard Hancock, I'm sorry, she called.
Okay.
She was the only one.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess the applicant wants to come up and offer a rebuttal on this. Give him an opportunity on that.
Our firm owns substantial real estate in the city of Independence, Blue Springs, Lee Summit, and throughout the entire Kansas
Would you
City
speak
metro.
up just a little?
Our firm owns substantial amounts of real estate within the Kansas City metro and this city and this municipality. I'm a Lee Summit resident. My daughter lives in Independence. We own multiple properties here. That lot, we have a maintenance crew or lawn mowing company that does mow all of our vacant properties. I've paid a bill to have that property mowed for the last 2 years. Sometime about 2 years ago, I was notified from the city that a tree had fallen. We contacted the city, determined what they wanted done, and we went out and did the repairs. I have not once on a single property that I own received a citation from the city of Independence. I've received a letter, and anytime we've received a letter and we're notified of any kind of issue, it's been addressed immediately. So I do want to point that out. Secondly, we're talking about the piers or the piles. That's prescriptive. That's in the 2012 or 2018 code, which we now go by. This is not something that's out of the ordinary. I'd also like to point out, and I know this because I almost bought the house. The gentleman's house right behind him, I believe is it. It is the second to the last house on Devon, on my side of the block. I may not have the floor, it may be this house, I'm not sure, but it is the second to the last house, I believe. Went into foreclosure about 2 years ago when I was looking at the Devon lot. So I did tour it. The entire back addition is built on piers. So it's not like it's not even existing on the street. It is existing on the street. The reason why I do not believe in basements is they will fail. We are in a market of compressive soil. That doesn't mean that your basement's sinking. It is getting pushed back out of the ground. That's why we have cracks. This is the #1 foundation repair market in the country, is Kansas City. So I don't believe in basements and that type of footings because it is going to get pushed up. You are going to have water problems. So putting that in there and the cost to put that in there when I know it is going to fail down the road is ridiculous. We have failing basements all over the city of Independence for that purpose. So the piers that we are putting in are not going to move. They will have a compressive and a resistive. So they're not coming up, they're not going down. And that is why I build in that manner. And if I was to put a basement in, I would still put a pier system in to make sure that we have the resistive strength to the building. So the building that I am proposing is actually stronger than any other building on the street. When we get to the maintenance issue of it, we use a metal-on-metal paint. This is more of an industrial type paint. This is a lifetime paint. It is not gonna, I mean, it will scratch, but it is very resistant to scratches. The steel is not gonna dent, and it is Cortine steel. So if it does rust, the good thing about Cortine steel is the surface rust actually acts as the coating. It will not rust past the surface rust. Keep in mind, these are designed to be transporting in salt water over the open ocean. So that's another thing that makes them stronger. I apologize, I can't remember your name, but in the research of container homes, this is not something we have done lightly, and we have spent approximately 3 years researching these builds and doing them that way. Our containers are ordered from China with direct specifications. You go look inside the containers that are there, they have a red wax ring over the bamboo flooring, and they are ordered without the pesticides included. And they are also, we dictate the freight. You can't really buy just an empty container. So any containers that we build with, the freight that is in them is the windmill components to the large windmills. So there is no toxic or chemicals or anything like that that have ever been inside any of the containers that we have. And that is why we do not use non-commissioned, or what they call air and water tight containers, which have been on the market or been in use for 20 years. And I agree with her. In that type of container situation, you don't know what was in that container. I know exactly what's been in my containers, and I know that they're safe. So I want to point that out too. Again, the reason we're here is to determine if what I'm proposing is so different than what's on the street. And there's no one house alike. Everything's different. So I don't know how to design or build something that's 40 years old. It's not possible. You know, we have to look at it and say, it's gonna be a new construction. Is it gonna look different than the older homes? Yes, it's brand new. They're also saying that they like the set of the neighborhood where it's all older, uniform, or however. Well, right behind their house, there's a brand new construction, California split. That looks like nothing within miles of this area. So I don't understand how that house is not different than the other neighborhoods. And this is in their backyard. I mean, just the next corner there off of Crane. So, I mean, I don't see what we're proposing is there. I have designed the plans to look as close to a traditional ranch as possible and maintain the criterias that I want, which will be an open floor plan. Our sell price on this, the going rate on Devon Street right now is between $100 and $110 a square foot retail on comps. My price on this house is gonna be at $150 a foot. The asking price on this will be $179. So I will increase the value. It will sell, my builds sell because of the quality that's in the build, so.
I have a couple of questions.
Yep.
If you were to remove the skirting and put in, for example, a continuous frost footing, reinforced to the proper below frost depth,
Right.
with a continuous curb, and that's what it took to get your project built here and approved to remove the skirting, is that something you would be willing to explore and talk to the neighbors about?
I absolutely would. I mean, I don't want to upset the neighbors. That's not my intent at all. For a matter of fact, this would be the first time I've ever had a neighbor upset with me on a build. And I think when they see the end result, it will be compliant and nice to the neighborhood. We definitely can put a footing in. The cost of putting a footing is going to raise the build cost about $18,000 to put a solid footing wall all the way around the perimeter.
Well, I'm not going to go into numbers
Right.
with you. I'm just
But
saying
that's why-
you know, you're talking about, you're concerned about the soil, and yet you're concentrating your weight in piers. And I don't know, I'm not going to get into the engineering and architecture of it, because that's not my role here. I'm here representing a citizen,
Right.
you know, and I appreciate, from my professional background, the fact that you're trying to be concerned with building to green, and you're trying to be concerned about, you know, the environmental issues and so forth. But our primary concern here is with the neighborhood character and how to satisfy your neighbors. And it's awfully hard for us to go against neighbors, even if we, because we're neighbors too.
Right.
Even if we appreciate what you're doing and you're taking a bold step. So my concern is if there's some way you could maybe reach out to these people and look at some other options, because apparently their big option is skirting. That seems to be the one that's most difficult. And, you know, of course, anybody's going to drive by a new house and check it out for a while, and then that goes away.
Right.
I mean, you know, new restaurant, lots of cars, and then it's regular.
What I would concede, because the skirting in the foundation wall is really going to be irrelevant when the end build's there.
A what?
You're not, the skirting or a foundation wall is really going to be irrelevant when the end build's there, because you're not going to know the difference between one or the other. Actually, the foundation wall is going to look worse than what we're proposing on the skirting, because it's just going to be a concrete, ugly wall there, instead of having some kind of cosmetic exterior cladding. What the one concern that I heard from most people is the exterior look of the container. I am willing to change the design where we go with a horizontal traditional type siding and just clad the exterior. So then it is uniform with anything there. It's just an added cost to the construction that's unnecessary. And I personally like the corrugation of the Cortine steel. So, but to clad the exterior on a house this size is not that big of a hardship to do. And if that's what's necessary to do it, to make it blend in with the rest, we're more than willing to concede that.
And then you're penetrating your steel, and so you've got other issues.
There-
I'm just wondering if there's any way you would be interested in continuing this case and having a sit-down meeting with the neighbors so that maybe it can be a win-win situation.
Well, I want to first point, we wouldn't have to penetrate the steel. That's something I wouldn't do, because then you're losing the vapor barrier and everything in the steel and the benefits of it. There is a product called InsoSoft that actually is in the same shape of the corrugation of the steel. It actually adheres to the steel, and then it's got a plastic stud that's in it that you can attach to. It holds all the necessary ICC certifications and everything that it needs to have. So we could put that up very easily and then attach an exterior cladding to the structure, and it would match anything else in the neighborhood.
I'm just saying, if you, for example, if we voted against this, your request, that we feel that it doesn't really fit in character of the neighborhood, and then that's it. If, for example, you decided, well, maybe I can look at some alternatives, or make sure the neighbors understand what you're doing, let them understand. They don't understand that this house has more value than their homes on the market. They don't understand that. They don't understand skirting. They don't understand the difference between what you're proposing and all the prescriptive stuff that's now in the 2018 code that independents. Right. They don't understand any of that stuff. They're neighbors, and she's lived here 57 years.
Right.
My grandmother lived over there. She was the one attacked by the dog 30 years ago, Helen. So, I'm familiar with it. So I'm just saying that you might want to consider that, because it's awfully hard for me, for example, to vote against people that just don't understand, and maybe they could understand, and it would be a win-win. It's just something to throw out. I better shut up.
Well, right now, we're in a position where we have 4 of the criteria that's not been met.
That's right.
And then we also have neighbors that are in opposition. So what Roy is basically trying to do is do you a favor, give you an opportunity to salvage this thing. So
The thing of it is all the criteria is met. By definition, it is met. The definition is prominent characteristic which to distinguish. There's no prominent characteristic down this street. I can't build old. I can't build falling down. I can't build that. It's a new construction house. There's only one way to put it. It doesn't matter if I went with a more traditional build, foundation, stick framed and everything else. I'm still not going to meet the old time feel of the neighborhood, because it's a new construction house. It's impossible to do. So if we look at it in the aspect that every house is different, we have houses that are on piers on the street. We have houses with metal siding. We have a house that is directly next to me that has a garage with a flat roof with cinder blocks. Then the backside of the house has got metal siding horizontally. I mean, there's everything that my house has is on the houses that are right around me. So I don't know what makes my house not fit within the guideline of that. They just don't either like the build or what have you, but it's the case.
We have to legally answer these 6 points and be
Okay.
prepared to go to circuit court or whatever, and that's our job. And I'm just stating that, you've got quite a few things stacked against you right now, and would you consider continuing your case to?
I don't think it will make a difference if I'm correct.
Pardon?
The thing that y'all, the thing, and I now I know who. The thing that I'm not going to appease them. We've been getting offers on the lot. I've turned them down and so on, and it was one of the neighbors, and I think I know now who whatever neighbor it is. And it's just like he just said, we don't want you there. I can't appease that. The design's not going to change that. I mean, this is a personal thing against me for some reason. I have no idea. I've never met the people. But the lot's not for sale. I mean, if this design doesn't work, we'll build a little 2-bedroom. I mean, It's not the design that I want to put in, doesn't help the neighborhood. It's going to lessen the value, it's going to lessen their property values. I mean, everything goes off of comps, but it'll be prescriptive. I guarantee you the house that I present next will be prescriptive to exactly what's there. I mean, do they want me to build that corner house that's falling down?
Well,
I don't.
You can build a new old house. I mean, you can build a house that looks like it was built years ago using new materials. I mean, come on.
But the thing of it is I haven't had anything on this, there's nothing that is a distinguishable characteristic on the street, with the exception is every single house is different. There is not a single house that is uniform on this block. They all have different roof pitches. They have hips and gables. They have Tudor designs. They have cottage designs. They have ranch designs. They have ranches with breezeways. They have ranches with detached garages. They have brick exterior. They have cinder block exterior. They're built on piers. There's no single one distinguishable characteristic of the neighborhood, with the exception of old. That's all I heard. So I don't see how I don't fall within the guidelines of what the zoning is. There's no way I can meet that.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I had a question. Is, you say this is something that's done around the city, or is this a very unusual type of construction? Because I'll be honest with you, we were in the construction business. We had a land surveying and engineering office, and we dealt with builders and developers. I've never seen anything like this. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying what we dealt with was concrete slabs where they build a full basement. And I don't agree with you on all the basements around this city are going to crack. I mean, I lived in the house for 34 years before we moved this last January, and there wasn't a crack in the foundation. It was built in 1961. So I can't hardly believe that. I really can't.
Mr. Jones, I may have misspoke when I said all, but I was to tell you what, there is a strong majority of basements in this area that does crack. It is because of the clay and the compressive soil that we have in Kansas City. The helical pier market in the country, this is the largest helical pier market, which the majority of them are used for foundation repair and jacking up the foundations. Those are the facts to it. If that wasn't the case, we wouldn't be the #1 helical pier and the #1 foundation repair market in the nation. To answer your question, that coming to shipping containers, yes, it is becoming more and more common. It actually is, from my understanding, being entered into the 2021 code. So it will be prescriptive come 2021. North Kansas City just finished an entire city block of shipping containers, of containers. There are shipping container homes within inside of Brookside. There are shipping container homes all throughout downtown Kansas City and all through the area. Bar K, which is a dog bar, I'm not sure exactly, was just recently built out of shipping containers. So it's not new. I mean, it's coming, it's becoming more prevalent. The reason why it's becoming more prevalent, it is a better build, in my opinion, and through the people that are testing. The testing that they're doing in Miami-Dade is substantial, and it proves this. They're going through wind ratings of 400 miles per hour. There is not a stick-framed house in the world that will stand up to 400 mile per hour wind ratings. So yes, I do believe it's a better build. They're termite resistant, they're deterioration resistant, and they're readily available is the other thing. So why spend the cost? Why cut down more trees? Why do all that when you have a good building stone to it? And in this design that we have here, we do have very aggressive designs that are very modern and contemporary. And I revised my design to meet more of a traditional ranch-style house from what we originally wanted to build there. With cladding this on the exterior side, you would not even know that this is what's on the inside. The inside's all sheetrocked, so you're not gonna see that. I mean, it is gonna look like any other build.
So your cladding would carry down to the skirting so that they would not see a difference between siding and skirting?
That's correct. Yeah, we'd bring it down to the ground.
Any other questions for the applicant? No? Well, thank you. You can be seated. We'll close the public hearing. We'll have a discussion. Oh, yeah, we can do that. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take a 5-minute break. That way, those of us who've been stuck up here get to use the head. All right, gentlemen. 4 of the 6 criteria that have not been met by, according to what city staff has put down in their review. And then we have neighbors that are not happy about this situation, so. Anybody have any comments, questions, ideas?
Well, I think without some approval from the neighbors, I mean, that's our first problem, that we don't have any kind of consideration that they think this is for the neighborhood. And that to me is bad.
Okay. Bob?
When Roy was talking about maybe continuing this.
Mr. Jones, if you would speak more into the microphone.
That helps.
That would help. Would possibly work with the city and try to bring back something that might work that would both with the neighbors and the developer here, the owner that's going to build it, that we could reach some kind of agreement where both parties would go along with it. But right now it doesn't look. I'm just kind of agreeing with what Roy was talking about. There has to be another way. I don't know. That's just my concern.
Gene?
I have no questions.
Roy?
My struggle is encouraging new technology if the new technology can satisfy the social criteria that we have neighbors and we have images and the things that buildings do to make presentations. Now, if this building were built out of concrete, met all the codes, and it were covered in siding, so nobody would know what was built out of, it wouldn't have come before this committee. And I'm thinking that this board, and I'm thinking that if, for example, he were to design this thing with horizontal clad siding over the whole thing, might not be as interesting my point of view, my profession, but it might fit the character of the site, and whether it's on piers or whether it's built out of whatever, if it meets the building code, that doesn't really affect the neighbors. It's not, they're just concerned with what's it going to look like. Mm-hmm. And so if I were going to vote for this, I would require that there would be a horizontal siding, cladding over the whole thing. There would be no skirting, that the siding would become the skirting. But if I were to do that, he would need to come before this body, the way I look at it. But we can't just shut this case down. So if we can't do anything about how neighbors have been upset with other neighbors. I mean, we've seen that a lot, and that's really not, we can't do anything about that. People are going to not like who they're not going to like, and so it's kind of a dilemma. I'm kind of not really knowing the best way to go. I'm tempted, on one hand, to vote the criteria for which I would vote to approve this, which he described in his own testimony that could be done. And then if he decides he doesn't want to do that, then, so I feel like I'm kind of sticking my neck out here. What do you guys think about this? If I were to propose that we approved it subject to his covering the whole exterior with a horizontal siding that was not out of character with the neighborhood and did not look like skirting in any way, then we would basically not be going against the neighbors. That's the way I see it. Mm-hmm. So, what do you think, Jim?
Well, I've seen some homes done with containers, and it actually is rather intriguing. And it is a neat thing. It's, you know, I can see some advantages to it. I can also understand where the neighbors are coming from. You know, it's concerning when something new comes in and it changes, or what you feel changes the characteristic of your neighborhood, or seems out of place. Sticks out like a sore thumb, so to speak. So I can understand their concerns on this.
So if we were to, for example, recommend approval with conditions, then the contractor would have an opportunity to take pictures of it before he finishes the siding and so forth, but I just hate to turn it down. If we do, then he can come back to the city with something that doesn't involve us at all.
All right, well,
So
that's true.
that's the dilemma. And
That's true.
I guess I'm looking for legal assistance or divine assistance or something. So I'm prepared to make a motion that we would, because I believe that the criteria that I would put in this motion would satisfy these 6 criteria, that we would allow him, because he has to follow the building code, grant this subject to his cladding the entire structure with horizontal siding and no visible skirting. You guys?
Yeah.
Are we still in a discussion, or is that a motion?
We're still in discussion. I'm working up the courage to make a motion.
What's the thought of the city on that type, what he's talking about?
I don't know that we have an opinion.
Okay. Well, let's just quickly then, the conditions, all of these conditions that we're looking at here, I don't think the essential character of the neighborhood's going to be changed if he does the siding and that people can't tell that it's on piers. I can't see that. And there may not be an alleged hardship if he puts the, because our job isn't to determine the type of building structure. That's the city code department in following the 2018 International Residential Code, and he's doing that.
I would say that having the horizontal siding on the building consistently around would be more in keeping with the neighborhood than the current design. That helps.
So,
In keeping in design of the neighborhood, is what I meant to say,
that's true.
than the existing proposed.
So I'm going to just do this. Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval of case number 19-999-30 with a clear stipulation that the entire building, including the metal containers, be covered with a siding, horizontal or otherwise, that does not allow the appearance of skirting, and that would be preferably horizontal, I think.
Right.
Of course, subject to all the code approvals of the city.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Read that motion back. This is a condition that the entire building be covered with a vertical or horizontal siding. And that's all? Is that the end, or did you have something else?
With no,
With no skirting?
so that it does not,
Skirting edge.
No visible.
no visible skirting.
With no
It would be
visible, okay.
continuous.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I think I have that. Did you want me to read it to you again?
Yes, please, just so we can all hear it again.
Condition that the entire building be covered with a vertical/horizontal siding with no visible skirting. Did you?
Sounds good to me.
Because you said horizontal or vertical, so I put both.
Yes,
Yeah.
'cause you might want a combination so that it looks good.
Okay.
Well, now let me ask something. If that's no skirting, does that mean there's a vacant space between the bottom floor and the ground? Because normally skirting covers a blank spot.
No visible skirting.
Yeah.
It would have to be continuous, the siding would have to be continuous all the way.
Okay,
You'll have
that's
to do
what I didn't
something that meets
understand.
code at the bottom to, you know,
So it'll be continuous to the ground. Okay, I can buy that.
We have a second on this one. We have a motion.
Second?
Okay. Let's have a vote. All right. Let's see. Jack Lehman,
I vote yes.
Robert Jones,
Yes.
Gene Ogle,
Vote yes.
Roy,
yes.
and I'm Tim Watkins, and I vote yes as well. Motion approved. Good luck to you. Okay. Everybody get a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting?
I think so. Everything looks good.
Yep.
We can just do it verbally.
Yeah, I had it out
Okay.
a minute ago.
So the
Any-
minutes stand approved?
Pardon me?
The minutes stand approved?
Everybody in favor of approving the minutes? Aye.
Favor?
Okay. All right. Meeting is closed.
Thank you.